Welcome to our channel. Before starting, please like and subscribe for more stories. The Achaemenid Empire, founded by Cyrus the Great, emerged as one of the greatest empires in human history, stretching from the Indus Valley in the east to the Aegean Sea in the west. Its establishment marked the beginning of a new era in governance, culture, and imperial strategy. This section delves into how the empire rose to prominence, detailing the early efforts of Cyrus the Great and his revolutionary leadership. 1. The origins of the Achaemenids. The Achaemenid dynasty was named after its semi-legendary founder, Achaemenes, though historical details about him remain scarce. The true beginnings of the empire lie with Cyrus II, known to history as Cyrus the Great, who united various tribes of the Iranian plateau under his rule. Before Cyrus, the region was dominated by the Median Empire, which controlled a substantial part of what would later become the Achaemenid Empire. Cyrus was born into a royal family, the son of Cambyses I, the king of Anshan, a vassal state under Median control. His rise to power began in 559 BC, when he became king of Anshan. However, his ambition extended far beyond his modest beginnings. 2. The fall of the Median Empire. Cyrus's first major conquest was the overthrow of the Median Empire in 550 BC. According to ancient sources, such as Herodotus, Cyrus revolted against his grandfather Astyages, the last Median king. The Medes were defeated in a decisive battle, and their capital Ecbatana was captured. With this victory, Cyrus united the Medes and Persians under his rule, laying the foundation for the Achaemenid Empire. The unification of the Medes and Persians was more than a military conquest. It was a strategic alliance. By incorporating Median elites into his administration, Cyrus ensured the stability of his newly formed empire. This model of governance, which emphasized inclusion and respect for local customs, will become a hallmark of Achaemenid rule. 3. Expansion into Lydia and Asia Minor. Cyrus's next major campaign was against the Kingdom of Lydia, located in what is now western Turkey. The Lydian king, Croesus, was renowned for his wealth and power, but he underestimated Cyrus's military acumen. In 546 BC, after a series of battles, Cyrus decisively defeated Croesus at the Battle of Thymbra. The fall of Lydia brought vast riches into the Persian treasury and extended the empire to the shores of the Aegean Sea. The conquest of Lydia also allowed Persia to dominate the Greek cities of Ionia, located along the western coast of Asia Minor. While these cities initially resisted Persian rule, they were eventually integrated into the empire. This expansion brought Persia into direct contact with the Greek world, setting the stage for future conflicts. 4. The conquest of Babylon. One of Cyrus's most celebrated achievements was the conquest of the Neo-Babylonian Empire in 539 BC. Babylon, a center of wealth, culture, and power, was ruled by Nabonidus, a king who had alienated much of his population due to his unorthodox religious policies. Cyrus took advantage of this unrest and presented himself as a liberator rather than a conqueror. The fall of Babylon was relatively peaceful. According to the Cyrus Cylinder, often regarded as the first declaration of human rights, Cyrus entered the city without significant resistance and was welcomed by its people. He restored the local religious practices that Nabonidus had suppressed, earning the loyalty of the Babylonians. Cyrus's decision to allow the exiled Jews to return to Jerusalem and rebuild their temple further cemented his reputation as a benevolent ruler. 5. Governance and administration under Cyrus. Cyrus's approach to governance was revolutionary for its time. Unlike other empires that ruled through fear and oppression, Cyrus emphasized cooperation and respect for local traditions. He allowed conquered peoples to retain their customs, religions, and local leaders, as long as they pledged loyalty and paid tribute to the empire. To administer his vast territories, Cyrus established a centralized bureaucracy, which would later be refined by his successors. He also introduced a system of roads and communication that facilitated trade and governance across the empire. 6. The legacy of Cyrus the Great. Cyrus's reign ended in 530 BC when he died during a campaign against the Massate, a nomadic tribe in Central Asia. His death marked the end of an era, but his legacy endured. Cyrus was remembered not only as a conqueror, but also as a visionary leader who laid the foundation for one of history's most influential empires. The tomb of Cyrus at Pasargadae, a simple yet elegant structure, remains a symbol of his enduring legacy. To this day, he is celebrated as one of history's greatest rulers, whose policies of tolerance and inclusivity set a standard for governance that influenced empires for centuries to come. After the death of Cyrus the Great, the task of continuing the expansion of the Achaemenid Empire fell to his son, Cambyses II. While Cambyses is often overshadowed by his father and his successor, his reign represents a critical period in the history of the Achaemenid Empire. Cambyses not only expanded the empire by conquering Egypt, but he also faced significant internal challenges that would later destabilize the empire. This key point examines Cambyses' achievements, his controversial rule, and the legacy of his short reign. 1. Ascension to the throne. Cambyses became king in 530 BC after Cyrus's death during a campaign against the Massate, a nomadic tribe in Central Asia. According to historical accounts, Cyrus had prepared Cambyses for leadership, appointing him as co-ruler in the latter years of his reign to ensure a smooth transition of power. Inheritance of a vast empire. Cambyses inherited a sprawling empire that stretched from the Indus Valley in the east to Asia Minor in the west. His early reign focused on consolidating this vast territory and maintaining the administrative systems established by his father. Relationship with Smerdis, Bardia. Cambyses' younger brother, Bardia, also known as Smerdis, played a significant role in the political narrative of Cambyses' reign. To prevent a potential rivalry, some sources claim Cambyses ordered Bardia's execution, though this remains a point of historical debate. 2. The conquest of Egypt. One of Cambyses' most notable achievements was the conquest of Egypt in 525 BC, which marked the Achaemenid Empire's expansion into North Africa. Egypt under the 26th dynasty. At the time of Cambyses' campaign, Egypt was ruled by Pharaoh Psamtik III of the 26th dynasty. Egypt had been a wealthy and powerful kingdom, with a long tradition of resisting foreign domination. The Battle of Pelusium. Cambyses launched a military campaign against Egypt, crossing the Sinai Desert with a well-prepared army. The decisive engagement was the Battle of Pelusium, fought near the eastern edge of the Nile Delta. According to historical accounts, Cambyses used psychological warfare, reportedly placing cats, sacred animals to the Egyptians, on the front lines to demoralize Egyptian forces. This tactic, combined with Persian military superiority, led to a resounding victory. The fall of Memphis and Egyptian resistance. After the defeat at Pelusium, Cambyses captured Memphis, the Egyptian capital. Psamtik III was taken prisoner, and Egypt was officially incorporated into the Achaemenid Empire. While Cambyses initially respected Egyptian traditions, resistance to Persian rule continued in the form of local uprisings, requiring a prolonged military presence. 3. Administration of Egypt. Cambyses declared himself Pharaoh of Egypt, adopting many of the titles and practices associated with Egyptian kingship. However, his rule in Egypt remains controversial due to conflicting accounts of his governance. Respect for Egyptian traditions. Some sources suggest that Cambyses sought to legitimize his rule by respecting Egyptian customs and religious practices. He is said to have participated in traditional rituals and maintained the worship of Egyptian deities. The Apis bull, a sacred symbol of fertility and strength in Egyptian religion, was reportedly honored during Cambyses' reign. Accounts of desecration. Greek historians, particularly Herodotus, portray Cambyses as a tyrant who desecrated Egyptian temples and disrespected local customs. However, modern scholars debate the accuracy of these accounts, which may reflect anti-Persian bias. For example, Herodotus claims that Cambyses killed the Apis bull in a fit of rage, an act that would have deeply offended the Egyptian populace. Archaeological evidence, however, suggests that the bull was buried with honors. 4 challenges to Cambyses' rule. While Cambyses achieved significant military success, his reign was also marked by internal instability and challenges to his authority. The false Bardia, Smerdis. While Cambyses was campaigning in Egypt, a man claiming to be his brother Bardia, whom Cambyses had allegedly executed, seized power in Persia. This individual, known as the false Bardia, gained support among the satrapies and declared himself king. The rebellion highlighted growing discontent within the empire, particularly among the provinces that resented Cambyses' heavy taxation and military campaigns. Cambyses' death. Cambyses began a march back to Persia to reclaim his throne but died under mysterious circumstances in 522 BC. Some sources suggest he accidentally wounded himself with his own sword, while others hint at assassination or illness. His sudden death left the empire in a state of turmoil, as the false Bardia continued to rule, creating a succession crisis. 5. Cambyses' legacy. Cambyses II's reign was brief, lasting only 8 years, but it had a lasting impact on the Achaemenid Empire. Military expansion. The conquest of Egypt added a crucial territory to the empire, bringing immense wealth and strategic advantages. Egypt's incorporation demonstrated the Achaemenid Empire's ability to integrate diverse cultures and regions. Controversial governance. Cambyses' reputation as a ruler is mixed, with some viewing him as a skilled conqueror and others as a tyrant. The contrasting accounts of his rule highlight the challenges of interpreting ancient sources. A precursor to Darius the Great. Cambyses' death and the subsequent turmoil paved the way for Darius I to seize power and restore stability to the empire. Darius's reign would build on Cambyses' achievements while addressing the weaknesses exposed during his rule. Conclusion. Cambyses II's reign was a pivotal chapter in the history of the Achaemenid Empire. While his conquest of Egypt demonstrated the military strength and ambition of the Persians, his struggles with internal dissent and his untimely death reveal the challenges of maintaining control over such a vast and diverse empire. Cambyses' achievements and controversies set the stage for the rise of Darius the Great, who would consolidate and expand the Achaemenid legacy in the years to come. The reign of Darius I, known as Darius the Great, marked a pivotal period in the history of the Achaemenid Empire. Following the chaos of Cambyses II's death and the uprising of the false Bardia, Darius not only secured the throne but also transformed the Achaemenid Empire into a highly efficient, centralized, and expansive state. His administrative reforms, infrastructure projects, and military conquests solidified the Achaemenid Empire as the largest and most sophisticated of its time. This key point explores the accomplishments, challenges, and legacy of Darius the Great. 1. Securing the throne. Darius's path to power was fraught with difficulty. After Cambyses II's mysterious death in 522 BC, the empire fell into disarray. A man claiming to be Bardia, Smyrtis, Cambyses' supposedly executed brother, seized power and gained widespread support. Darius, a member of the Achaemenid dynasty but not directly descended from Cyrus the Great, claimed the throne by defeating this pretender. The overthrow of the false Bardia. According to Darius's inscriptions, particularly the Behistun inscription, he and a group of 6 Persian nobles discovered that the ruler was not the real Bardia but an impostor named Gaumata. Darius and his allies killed Gaumata and declared Darius king, though some historians speculate that Darius fabricated the story to legitimize his rule. Suppressing rebellions. Darius faced widespread rebellions across the empire, with uprisings in Babylon, Media, Elam, and other regions. These revolts reflected dissatisfaction with the central authority following Cambyses' death. Over the course of 2 years, Darius successfully quelled these uprisings, demonstrating his military skill and determination to unify the empire. Legitimizing his rule. To solidify his authority, Darius emphasized his lineage to Achaemenes and portrayed himself as chosen by the Persian god Ahura Mazda. The Behistun inscription, carved into a cliff in modern-day Iran, detailed his rise to power and divine right to rule. 2. Administrative reforms. Darius is perhaps best remembered for his sweeping administrative reforms, which transformed the Achaemenid Empire into a highly organized and efficient state. The satrapy system. Darius divided the empire into approximately 20 satrapies, provinces, each governed by a satrap, provincial governor. Satraps were responsible for collecting taxes, maintaining security, and ensuring loyalty to the king. To prevent them from becoming too powerful, Darius appointed royal officials known as the eyes and ears of the king to monitor their activities. Standardized taxation. Unlike his predecessors, Darius implemented a standardized system of taxation, with each satrapy assigned a specific annual tribute based on its economic output. For example, Egypt provided grain, papyrus, and gold. India contributed vast amounts of gold dust. Asia Minor supplied silver and other resources. This system ensured a steady flow of revenue to the central government, while respecting the economic diversity of the empire. Coinage and currency. Darius introduced the daric, a gold coin, and the siglos, a silver coin, which became the standard currency across the empire. This monetary reform facilitated trade and commerce, creating a unified economy that stretched from the Indus Valley to the Mediterranean. Legal codification. Darius codified laws across the empire, allowing local traditions to coexist with imperial regulations. This approach ensured both efficiency and cultural respect, strengthening the loyalty of diverse populations. 3. Infrastructure and connectivity. Darius's reign was marked by ambitious infrastructure projects that enhanced communication, trade, and governance across the empire. The Royal Road. Darius constructed the Royal Road, a vast network of highways stretching over 1,500 miles from Susa in Persia to Sardis in Asia Minor. The road was equipped with relay stations and fresh horses, enabling couriers to travel the entire distance in just 7 days, a remarkable feat for the time. Canals and waterways. Darius built a canal connecting the Nile River to the Red Sea, facilitating maritime trade between Egypt and the Persian Gulf. This project, often considered a precursor to the modern Suez Canal, showcased Darius's vision of connecting diverse regions through infrastructure. Construction of Persepolis. Darius began the construction of Persepolis, a ceremonial capital that symbolized the grandeur and unity of the empire. Persepolis featured elaborate palaces, monumental staircases, and reliefs depicting delegations from across the empire bringing tribute to the king. 4. Military campaigns and expansion. Darius expanded the empire to its greatest territorial extent, encompassing parts of modern-day India, Central Asia, and southeastern Europe. Conquests in the east. Darius extended Persian control to the Indus Valley, incorporating territories in what is now Pakistan and northwest India. This expansion brought the Achaemenid Empire into contact with the rich cultures of South Asia and established trade routes that connected the empire to the broader ancient world. Campaigns in Europe. Darius launched military expeditions into Thrace and Macedonia, extending Persian influence into southeastern Europe. These campaigns aimed to secure the empire's western frontier and subjugate rebellious regions. Conflict with Greece. Darius's most famous military ventures involved the Greco-Persian Wars. In 499 BC, several Greek city-states in Ionia revolted against Persian rule, sparking a conflict that would last for decades. Darius crushed the Ionian revolt and sought to punish Athens and Eretria for their support of the rebels. His campaign culminated in the Battle of Marathon in 490 BC, where the Athenian army achieved a surprising victory against the larger Persian force. Despite this setback, Darius laid the groundwork for future attempts to subjugate Greece, which his successor, Xerxes I, would continue. 5. Darius's religious policies. As a devout follower of Zoroastrianism, Darius incorporated its principles into his governance while maintaining religious tolerance across the empire. Promotion of Zoroastrianism. Darius identified himself as a servant of Ahura Mazda, the chief deity of Zoroastrianism, and portrayed his rule as divinely ordained. Many of his inscriptions emphasize the dualistic struggle between good and evil, reflecting Zoroastrian ideals. Religious tolerance. Darius respected the religious practices of his diverse subjects, allowing them to worship their own gods. This policy reinforced loyalty and minimized resistance. 6. Legacy of Darius the Great. Darius's reign ended in 486 BC, when he died while preparing for another campaign against rebellious regions in Egypt. His legacy, however, endured for centuries. Architect of the Achaemenid Empire. Darius transformed the Achaemenid Empire into a centralized, efficient, and enduring state. His reforms provided a model of governance that influenced later empires, including the Romans. The reign of Xerxes I, the son and successor of Darius the Great, is one of the most famous in the history of the Achaemenid Empire, largely due to his campaigns against Greece during the Greco-Persian Wars. Xerxes inherited an empire at its peak but faced significant challenges, including maintaining internal stability and extending Persian influence in Europe. While his reign is often remembered for the invasions of Greece and the legendary battles of Thermopylae, Salamis, and Plataea, Xerxes also left his mark through grand construction projects and internal governance. This key point explores Xerxes' achievements, failures, and legacy. 1. Ascension to the throne. Xerxes I ascended the throne in 486 BC following the death of his father, Darius I. As the eldest son of Darius and Queen Atassa, daughter of Cyrus the Great, Xerxes had a strong claim to the throne. Legitimacy and succession. Darius reportedly named Xerxes as his heir due to his lineage from Cyrus the Great through Atassa, which strengthened his legitimacy. Xerxes faced initial resistance from his brothers and other noble factions, but his ascension was ultimately undisputed, owing to his father's preparations. Quelling rebellions. Upon taking power, Xerxes inherited several rebellions, including uprisings in Egypt and Babylon. In 484 BC, Xerxes successfully suppressed the Egyptian revolt, reasserting Persian control and appointing a trusted satrap to govern the region. However, his measures, including heavy taxation, alienated the Egyptian populace. A revolt in Babylon followed, during which Xerxes reportedly desecrated the city's temples and confiscated its sacred statues, signaling a shift away from the tolerant policies of his predecessors. 2. The invasion of Greece. Xerxes is best known for his ambitious campaign to subjugate Greece, which he launched in 480 BC to avenge Persia's defeat at the Battle of Marathon for 90 BC during his father's reign. His invasion was one of the largest military endeavors of the ancient world. Assembling the Persian army and navy. Xerxes amassed an enormous army and fleet, drawing forces from across the vast empire. Estimates of the size of his army range widely, with some ancient accounts claiming over 1 million soldiers, likely exaggerated, though modern historians suggest a force of around 100,000 to 200,000. The Persian navy, composed of ships from Phoenicia, Egypt, and Asia Minor, was a crucial component of the campaign. Engineering feats. Xerxes' invasion required extraordinary logistical planning. To cross the Hellespont, modern-day Dardanelles, his engineers constructed a pontoon bridge, an incredible engineering achievement for the time. He also ordered the construction of a canal across the Isthmus of Mount Athos to allow his fleet to bypass dangerous waters, showcasing Persian ingenuity and determination. The Battle of Thermopylae, 480 BC. One of the most famous battles in history, Thermopylae was a narrow pass defended by a small Greek force led by King Leonidas I of Sparta. The Persian army eventually overwhelmed the Greeks after a local resident betrayed them by revealing a secret path around a pass. Despite their defeat, the Spartans' heroic stand became a symbol of resistance and inspired Greek unity. The Battle of Salamis, 480 BC. After capturing and burning Athens, Xerxes' navy faced the Greek fleet at Salamis, a narrow strait where the Greeks had the tactical advantage. The smaller, more maneuverable Greek ships outflanked the larger Persian vessels, resulting in a decisive victory for the Greeks. This defeat forced Xerxes to retreat with much of his army, leaving a smaller force to continue the campaign. The Battle of Plataea, 479 BC. The following year, the Persian land forces were decisively defeated at Plataea by a coalition of Greek city-states. This battle effectively ended Persian ambitions in mainland Greece. 3. Domestic policies and construction projects. While Xerxes is primarily remembered for his military campaigns, he also oversaw significant developments within the Achaemenid Empire. Construction of monumental architecture. Xerxes continued the construction projects initiated by Darius, particularly at Persepolis, the ceremonial capital. He built the Gate of All Nations, a grand entrance adorned with reliefs of delegates from across the empire, symbolizing the unity and diversity of Persian rule. Other projects included the completion of the Apadana, Audience Hall, and additions to Susa and Ecbatana. Centralized governance. Xerxes maintained the administrative systems established by his predecessors, including the satrapy system. However, his heavy-handed approach in regions like Egypt and Babylon led to unrest and resentment. His reign marked a shift toward a more autocratic style of rule, with less emphasis on cultural and religious tolerance. 4. Challenges and decline. Xerxes' reign faced significant internal and external challenges, contributing to the gradual decline of the Achaemenid Empire. The cost of war. The failed Greek campaign drained the empire's resources and exposed the limitations of Persian military power. The defeats at Salamis and Plataea weakened Persia's influence in the Aegean and emboldened Greek city-states, particularly Athens, which later formed the Delian League to resist Persian domination. Assassination and turmoil. In 465 BC, Xerxes was assassinated in his palace by a conspiracy involving members of his court. The exact motivations behind the assassination remain unclear, but it marked the beginning of a period of instability. His successor, Artaxerxes I, faced challenges in reasserting control and dealing with growing unrest within the empire. 5. Legacy of Xerxes I. Xerxes' legacy is complex, shaped by his grand ambitions, military failures, and contributions to Persian art and architecture. Military legacy. While his Greek campaign ended in failure, Xerxes' invasion demonstrated the logistical and organizational capabilities of the Achaemenid Empire. His defeat at Salamis marked a turning point in the Greco-Persian Wars, highlighting the resilience and strategic ingenuity of the Greek city-states. Cultural achievements. Xerxes' construction projects at Persepolis and elsewhere remain testaments to the grandeur of the Achaemenid Empire. His reign, like those of his predecessors, reflected the empire's ability to integrate diverse cultures into a cohesive imperial identity. A symbol of hubris. In Western literature and historiography, Xerxes is often portrayed as a figure of hubris and arrogance, particularly in Greek accounts such as those of Herodotus. This perspective, while biased, has shaped popular perceptions of Xerxes and the Achaemenid Empire. Conclusion. Xerxes I's reign was a defining period for the Achaemenid Empire. While his military campaigns against Greece ultimately failed, they showcased the empire's strength and ambition. Domestically, his architectural achievements and centralized governance left a lasting impact. However, his heavy-handed policies and inability to secure lasting victories in Greece foreshadowed the challenges that would later contribute to the decline of the Achaemenid Empire. The Achaemenid Empire reached its zenith under Darius the Great and Xerxes I, but the period following Xerxes' assassination in 465 BC marked the beginning of its gradual decline. A succession of weaker rulers, internal unrest, external pressures from rising powers like Greece, and administrative inefficiencies contributed to the weakening of the once mighty Persian Empire. Despite maintaining its vast territorial extent, the empire began losing its grip over its provinces and encountered challenges that would culminate in its eventual conquest by Alexander the Great in 330 BC. 1. The reign of Artaxerxes I 465 to 424 BC. Following the assassination of Xerxes I, his son Artaxerxes I ascended the throne. His reign was relatively stable, but marked by persistent internal strife and external threats. Consolidating power. Artaxerxes I faced immediate challenges to his rule, including potential rivals within the royal family and the empire's administration. However, he successfully established control, partly through strategic appointments of loyal satraps. The Peace of Callias, 449 BC. During Artaxerxes' reign, Persia faced continued resistance from the Greek city-states, particularly Athens. The Delian League, led by Athens, posed a significant threat to Persian influence in the Aegean region. The conflict culminated in the Peace of Callias, a treaty that ended hostilities between Persia and Athens. Persia agreed to relinquish claims to the Greek cities of Ionia in exchange for peace. While this was a diplomatic achievement, it marked a retreat from earlier ambitions of dominating Greece. Cultural and economic stability. Artaxerxes focused on maintaining the empire's cultural and economic systems. He continued infrastructure projects, including the completion of Darius's canals and palaces in Susa and Persepolis. His reign also saw the codification of laws and efforts to maintain religious harmony across the empire. 2. Darius II and internal struggles, 424 to 404 BC. The reign of Darius II, who succeeded Artaxerxes I, marked the beginning of significant internal instability within the Achaemenid Empire. The role of satraps. During Darius II's reign, the satraps, provincial governors, gained increasing autonomy, particularly in regions like Asia Minor and Egypt. Many satraps began acting as independent rulers, undermining central authority. One notable satrap, Tissaphernes, wielded considerable power in Asia Minor and often pursued his own interests, which occasionally conflicted with the king's directives. Egyptian revolt. Egypt, a critical province for the empire's economy and prestige, successfully rebelled against Persian rule in 404 BC. The loss of Egypt highlighted the empire's waning ability to maintain control over its far-flung territories. Growing discontent. Corruption, heavy taxation, and inefficient governance led to widespread dissatisfaction among the empire's subjects, further weakening internal cohesion. 3. Artaxerxes II and the Revolt of the Satraps, 404 to 358 BC. The reign of Artaxerxes II, the longest of any Achaemenid king, was marked by significant challenges, including rebellions and conflicts with Greece. The Revolt of the Satraps. Between 366 and 360 BC, several satraps in Asia Minor rebelled against the central government. This rebellion, known as the Great Satraps' Revolt, was fueled by dissatisfaction with the monarchy's increasing demands for taxes and resources. Artaxerxes II managed to suppress the revolt, but the event exposed the empire's internal weaknesses and the growing power of provincial governors. Conflict with Sparta. Persia's involvement in Greek affairs continued during Artaxerxes' reign. The empire supported Athens and other Greek city-states against Sparta during the Corinthian War, 395 to 387 BC. The war ended with the King's Peace, 387 BC, brokered by Artaxerxes II, which reasserted Persian influence over the Greek cities of Asia Minor. Religious and cultural policies. Artaxerxes II is known for promoting Zoroastrianism and constructing temples dedicated to Anahita, a deity associated with fertility and water. However, his reign also saw growing tensions among the empire's diverse religious communities. For Artaxerxes III and the Brief Revival, 358 to 338 BC. Artaxerxes III sought to reverse the decline of the Achaemenid Empire through aggressive military campaigns and administrative reforms, reasserting control over Egypt. In 343 BC, Artaxerxes III successfully reconquered Egypt, restoring it to Persian control. This victory was a significant achievement, demonstrating the empire's ability to reassert dominance over rebellious territories. However, Persian rule in Egypt remained fragile, as the population continued to resist foreign domination. Administrative centralization. Artaxerxes III implemented measures to curb the power of the satraps and strengthen central authority. He also restructured the military to improve its effectiveness. These reforms brought temporary stability to the empire, but failed to address deeper systemic issues. Assassination and turmoil. Artaxerxes III's reign ended abruptly in 338 BC when he was assassinated by Bagoas, a powerful court eunuch. His death plunged the empire into further chaos, as a series of weak rulers followed. 5. Darius III and the fall of the empire, 336 to 330 BC. The final ruler of the Achaemenid Empire, Darius III, faced the greatest external threat in Persian history, the rise of Alexander the Great. The Macedonian threat. By the time Darius III ascended the throne, Macedonia, under Philip II and later Alexander the Great, had become a formidable power. Alexander launched a campaign to conquer the Persian Empire in 334 BC. The battles of Issus and Gaugamela. Darius III suffered significant defeats at the Battle of Issus, 333 BC, and the Battle of Gaugamela, 331 BC. These losses were due to Alexander's superior strategy and the declining cohesion of the Persian military. The defeat at Gaugamela effectively ended Persian resistance, as Alexander marched on to capture the heartland of the empire. Darius's death and the end of the Achaemenid Empire. Darius III fled eastward but was betrayed and killed by his own satrap, Bessus, in 330 BC. With his death, the Achaemenid Empire came to an end, and Alexander assumed control over its territories. 6. Legacy of the later Achaemenid period. Despite its decline, the Achaemenid Empire left a lasting legacy. Cultural contributions. Persian art, architecture, and administrative practices influenced subsequent empires, including the Seleucid, Parthian, and Sasanian empires. The empire's policies of religious tolerance and respect for diversity set a precedent for governance in multicultural states. Alexander's admiration. Alexander the Great admired Persian governance and adopted many Achaemenid practices, blending Greek and Persian cultures in his newly established empire. A model for future empires. The administrative and infrastructural innovations of the Achaemenids served as a model for later empires, including the Roman and Byzantine empires. 550 to 330 BC was not only the largest empire of its time, but also one of the most culturally sophisticated and administratively innovative. Its vast size and diversity required a unique system of governance that combined centralized authority with respect for local traditions. The Persian approach to culture, religion, and governance was revolutionary, fostering stability across a multi-ethnic empire that stretched from the Indus Valley to the Mediterranean Sea. This key point explores the Achaemenid Empire's administrative structure, cultural achievements, and the role of religion in uniting its people. One administration and the satrapy system. The Achaemenid Empire was renowned for its effective governance, which allowed it to manage vast territories encompassing dozens of cultures, languages, and religions. The satrapy system. To govern such a vast and diverse empire, the Achaemenids divided their territory into administrative regions called satrapies. Each satrapy was overseen by a satrap, governor, who acted as the king's representative. Satraps were responsible for collecting taxes, maintaining order, and overseeing the local military. While they had considerable autonomy, they were monitored by royal officials known as the eyes and ears of the king. This system ensured loyalty while allowing for localized governance. Centralized oversight. The central government in Persepolis, Susa, and other capitals maintained tight control over the satraps through regular audits and inspections. Royal messengers traveled swiftly along the royal road, ensuring that the king received timely updates from every corner of the empire. This balance of central authority and regional autonomy was a key factor in the empire's longevity. Standardized taxation. Under Darius I, the empire introduced a standardized system of taxation, with each satrapy contributing resources based on its economic capacity. For example, Babylon supplied vast amounts of grain. India provided gold dust. Egypt contributed agricultural products and papyrus. This system created a steady flow of wealth to the central government while minimizing the burden on any single region. Infrastructure and communication. The empire's success was partly due to its extensive infrastructure, including the Royal Road, which connected major cities over a distance of 1,500 miles. Relay stations with fresh horses allowed couriers to travel the road in just 7 days, compared to 3 months for an ordinary traveler. The road facilitated trade, communication, and military mobility, making the Achaemenid Empire one of the most interconnected of its time. 2. Persian culture and artistic achievements. The Achaemenid Empire was a cultural melting pot, blending influences from the many civilizations it encompassed, including Mesopotamia, Egypt, India, and Greece. Architecture. The Persians were master builders, and their architectural achievements reflected the grandeur of their empire. The most iconic example is Persepolis, the ceremonial capital founded by Darius I and expanded by Xerxes I. Persepolis featured grand palaces, monumental staircases, and reliefs depicting delegates from across the empire bringing tribute. Other notable architectural feats include the Apadana Hall, a massive audience chamber with 72 columns, and the palaces of Susa and Pasargadae. Art and symbolism. Persian art emphasized unity and diversity, often depicting subjects from different cultures bringing tribute to the king. This imagery symbolized the empire's inclusivity and the central authority of the monarch. Achaemenid artisans were skilled in metalwork, producing intricate gold and silver vessels, jewelry, and ceremonial items. These works often featured animal motifs, such as lions, bulls, and griffins, which held symbolic significance in Persian culture. Multicultural influence. The empire's openness to cultural exchange fostered a blend of artistic styles. For example, Persian reliefs combined Mesopotamian iconography with Greek and Egyptian elements, creating a unique aesthetic that symbolized the empire's unity. 3. Religion in the Achaemenid Empire. Religion played a central role in the governance and culture of the Achaemenid Empire, both as a unifying force and a means of legitimizing the king's authority. Zoroastrianism. The official religion of the Achaemenid kings was Zoroastrianism, founded by the prophet Zarathustra, Zoroaster. This monotheistic faith emphasized the duality of good and evil, with Ahura Mazda as the supreme god. Zoroastrianism influenced the Achaemenid kings' governance, as they viewed their rule as divinely ordained. For example, inscriptions like the Behistun inscription often invoked Ahura Mazda as the source of the king's power. Religious tolerance. Despite their adherence to Zoroastrianism, the Achaemenid rulers were famously tolerant of other religions. Cyrus the Great, for example, allowed the Jews exiled in Babylon to return to Jerusalem and rebuild their temple, an act recorded in the Cyrus Cylinder and the Bible. This policy of tolerance extended to other religions, including Egyptian, Babylonian, and Greek practices. By respecting local customs and deities, the Achaemenids fostered loyalty and minimized resistance among their diverse subjects. Temples and rituals. The Achaemenids supported the construction and maintenance of temples for various religions across the empire. Zoroastrian fire temples, Egyptian sanctuaries, and Babylonian ziggurats all received royal patronage. The king's role as a mediator between the divine and the mortal world was reinforced through grand ceremonies and offerings to the gods. For governance through inclusivity. One of the most remarkable aspects of the Achaemenid Empire was its inclusivity, which allowed it to integrate diverse peoples into a cohesive political system. Respect for local customs. The Achaemenids allowed conquered regions to maintain their own laws, languages, and traditions, as long as it pledged loyalty to the king and paid tribute. This approach minimized rebellion and fostered a sense of belonging among the empire's subjects. Cultural diversity in administration. The empire employed officials and soldiers from various ethnic groups, including Babylonians, Egyptians, Greeks, and Indians. This diversity strengthened the administration and reflected the empire's cosmopolitan character. The use of multiple languages in official documents, such as Old Persian, Elamite, and Aramaic, further emphasized inclusivity. The king as a symbol of unity. The Achaemenid king was more than a ruler. He was a unifying figure who embodied the empire's diversity. Ceremonial rituals, royal decrees, and monumental architecture all reinforced the idea of the king as the protector and benefactor of all his subjects. 5. Legacy of Persian culture and governance. The Achaemenid Empire's cultural and administrative achievements left an enduring legacy that influenced subsequent empires and civilizations. Women in the Achaemenid Empire, particularly those within the royal family, held a unique and often influential position in society. While the Achaemenid world was largely patriarchal, Persian women, both noble and common, played significant roles in politics, economics, religion, and culture. The status and rights of women in the empire were advanced compared to many other ancient civilizations, and their contributions reflect the complexity and inclusivity of Persian society. 1. The role of royal women. Royal women in the Achaemenid Empire wielded significant power and influence, often shaping the course of political and dynastic affairs. Queen Atassa. One of the most prominent figures in Achaemenid history was Atassa, daughter of Cyrus the Great and wife of Darius I. Atassa played a critical role in consolidating Darius's claim to the throne by linking him to the lineage of Cyrus. As the mother of Xerxes I, she helped secure the succession of her son, demonstrating her pivotal role in maintaining dynastic continuity. Her influence extended beyond the royal court, as she is believed to have advised Darius on political and military matters. Royal matriarchs. Royal women often acted as matriarchs within the Achaemenid court, overseeing the upbringing of heirs and the management of household affairs. They were also involved in diplomacy, sometimes playing a role in forging alliances through marriage or acting as intermediaries between rival factions within the court. Economic power. Women in the royal family were granted vast estates and wealth, allowing them to exert significant economic influence. For example, they controlled agricultural lands, livestock, and trade networks, often employing large numbers of workers and administrators. Political intrigue. The Achaemenid court was a hub of political intrigue, and royal women were frequently involved in the machinations of succession and governance. Their ability to influence the king and key court officials gave them considerable behind-the-scenes power. 2. Women in religion and culture. Women played important roles in the religious and cultural life of the Achaemenid Empire, contributing to the maintenance of social and spiritual order. Zoroastrianism and gender equality. Zoroastrianism, the predominant religion of the Achaemenid Empire, emphasized the spiritual equality of men and women. Both genders were seen as vital participants in the eternal struggle between good and evil. Women were active in religious ceremonies, particularly in roles that involved maintaining sacred fires and participating in rituals that reinforce the moral and cosmic order. Cultural representation. In Achaemenid art and inscriptions, women were often depicted with dignity and respect, particularly those of the royal family. While representations of women were less common than those of men, they reflect their integral role in society. Persian literature and oral traditions also highlight the contributions of women, portraying them as wise counselors and devoted family members. 3. Economic contributions of women. Women in the Achaemenid Empire were economically active and held positions of responsibility in both urban and rural contexts. Workers and managers. Records from the Persepolis fortification tablets reveal that women were employed in various roles, including as laborers, weavers, and managers of estates. Women received wages in the form of silver, food, or other goods, reflecting their value within the economic system. Weaving and textile production. Textile production was a significant industry in the Achaemenid Empire, and women played a leading role in this sector. High-ranking women supervised workshops that produced textiles for the royal court and the army. The production of fine garments and ceremonial robes, often adorned with intricate designs, was a mark of Persian cultural sophistication and a source of prestige for the empire. Land ownership. Noblewomen, including members of the royal family, owned large tracts of land, which they managed independently or through appointed administrators. These estates were critical to the empire's agricultural output and economic stability. Women's control over land and resources gave them substantial autonomy and influence, particularly in rural regions. 4. Legal rights of women. The legal framework of the Achaemenid Empire granted women certain rights and protections, making them relatively empowered compared to women in many other ancient societies. Property ownership and inheritance. Women could own, inherit, and transfer property independently, a right that extended to both noble and common women. Daughters often received inheritances alongside their brothers, reflecting the emphasis on familial continuity and the preservation of wealth within families. Marriage and dowries. Marriage contracts in the Achaemenid Empire frequently included provisions to protect women's rights, including guarantees of dowries and financial support in case of divorce or widowhood. Dowries often consisted of land, livestock, and other valuable assets, which women retained as personal property. Participation in legal disputes. Women could appear in court to defend their interests or pursue claims, a rare privilege in many ancient societies. They were often represented by male relatives, but retained the ability to influence legal outcomes. 5. Common women in everyday life. While royal and noble women are the most documented, common women also played essential roles in the empire's daily life and economy. Agricultural laborers. In rural areas, women worked as laborers on farms, contributing to the cultivation of wheat, barley, and other staples. Their work was essential to sustaining the empire's vast population. Women also participated in the production of wine, dairy products, and other goods critical to both local consumption and trade. Urban roles. In cities, women worked as artisans, merchants, and domestic workers. Some women operated small businesses or managed family-owned shops. Urban women often had access to markets, where they engaged in the exchange of goods and services, contributing to the vibrancy of Achaemenid urban centers. Family and social life. The family unit was central to Achaemenid society, and women were respected as caretakers and educators of children. They played a vital role in passing down cultural and religious traditions to the next generation. 6. The legacy of women in the Achaemenid Empire. The contributions of women in the Achaemenid Empire left a lasting impact on Persian history and culture. A tradition of influence. The prominent roles of figures like Atassa and other royal women set a precedent for the influence of women in later Persian dynasties, including the Parthian and Sasanian empires. The respect accorded to women in Achaemenid society reflected the progressive attitudes toward gender roles that continued in Persian culture. Economic and cultural foundations. Women's contributions to the economy, particularly in agriculture and textile production, were critical to the empire's prosperity. Their role in preserving and promoting cultural traditions ensured the continuity of Persian identity. The decline of the Achaemenid Empire began during the later years of its rule, as internal struggles, external pressures, and systemic weaknesses gradually eroded the stability of the once great empire. Spanning over 2 centuries, the Achaemenid Empire faced challenges that included weak leadership, growing autonomy among satraps, economic strain, and the rising threat of external powers like Macedonia. The culmination of these issues led to the empire's downfall at the hands of Alexander the Great in 330 BC. 1 weak leadership after Xerxes I. The assassination of Xerxes I in 465 BC marked the start of a series of weaker rulers whose inability to address internal and external challenges accelerated the empire's decline. Artaxerxes I, 465 to 424 BC. After Xerxes' death, his son Artaxerxes I ascended the throne. While Artaxerxes maintained relative stability, his reign was marked by several rebellions and continued interference in Greek affairs. Artaxerxes brokered the Peace of Callias in 449 BC, which ended hostilities between Persia and Athens, but also marked a retreat from Persian ambitions in the Aegean. Darius II, 424 to 404 BC. The reign of Darius II was plagued by corruption and growing autonomy among the satraps, especially in regions like Asia Minor and Egypt. Egypt successfully revolted during his reign, breaking away from Persian control, while tensions with Greek city-states persisted. Artaxerxes II, 404 to 358 BC. The long reign of Artaxerxes II saw internal revolts, including the Great Satraps' Revolt, 366 to 360 BC, during which several provincial governors rebelled against central authority. Although Artaxerxes managed to suppress the revolt, it exposed the empire's growing fragmentation and inability to maintain strong centralized control. Artaxerxes III, 358 to 338 BC. Artaxerxes III temporarily revitalized the empire by reconquering Egypt in 343 BC and implementing reforms to curb satrapal autonomy. However, his reign ended in his assassination, leaving the empire in turmoil. 2. The growing power of satraps. One of the key factors in the Achaemenid Empire's decline was the increasing autonomy and power of the satraps, provincial governors, who often acted as independent rulers. The role of satraps. While the satrapy system had been effective during the reigns of Cyrus the Great and Darius I, later kings struggled to enforce centralized authority. Satraps like Tissaphernes in Asia Minor and Bagoas in Egypt wielded significant power, sometimes acting against the interests of the central government. The satraps' revolts. The Great Satraps' Revolt, which took place during the reign of Artaxerxes II, involved governors from key regions like Asia Minor rebelling against imperial authority. Although the rebellion was quelled, it weakened the empire's cohesion and demonstrated the diminishing power of the central government. 3. The rise of Macedonia and external threats. While the Achaemenid Empire grappled with internal instability, external powers, particularly Macedonia, began to pose a significant threat. Philip II of Macedon. Under Philip II, Macedonia emerged as a unified and militarized state. Philip's campaigns in Greece, culminating in the Battle of Chaeronea, 338 BC, brought the Greek city-states under Macedonian control. Philip's vision of a pan-Hellenic campaign against Persia laid the groundwork for the empire's eventual conquest. Alexander the Great. Following Philip II's assassination in 336 BC, his son Alexander the Great assumed power and quickly launched an invasion of the Persian Empire. Alexander's military campaigns were marked by superior strategy and tactics, as well as the use of a disciplined and innovative army. The Achaemenids, in contrast, relied on outdated military practices and struggled to mobilize their vast resources effectively. For Darius III and the fall of the empire. The final ruler of the Achaemenid Empire, Darius III, inherited a weakened and fragmented state. Despite his efforts to rally the empire against Alexander, Darius was unable to halt the Macedonian advance. The battles of Granicus, Issus, and Gaugamela. Battle of Granicus, 334 BC. Alexander's forces defeated a Persian army led by local satraps, opening the way into Asia Minor. Battle of Issus, 333 BC. Alexander decisively defeated Darius III, forcing him to flee and capturing his family. This victory further demoralized the Persian forces. Battle of Gaugamela, 331 BC. Often considered the decisive battle of Alexander's campaign, Gaugamela resulted in a crushing defeat for Darius III. Despite having a larger army, the Persian forces were outmaneuvered by Alexander's superior tactics. The death of Darius III. After the defeat at Gaugamela, Darius fled eastward in an attempt to regroup but was betrayed and assassinated by Bessus, a satrap of Bactria. With Darius's death in 330 BC, Alexander declared himself the rightful ruler of the Persian Empire, marking the end of the Achaemenid dynasty. 5. Systemic weaknesses and economic strain. Several systemic issues contributed to the Achaemenid Empire's inability to withstand external threats. Overextension. The vast size of the empire made it difficult to govern effectively, especially as communication and transportation, despite advancements like the Royal Road, remained slow by modern standards. The empire's multi-ethnic composition, while initially a strength, became a liability as local loyalties often outweighed allegiance to the central government. Economic strain. Heavy taxation to fund military campaigns and court expenditures created widespread dissatisfaction among the empire's subjects. Rebellions in wealthy provinces like Egypt further drained resources and undermined the empire's economic stability. Cultural fragmentation. While the Achaemenid rulers practiced tolerance, cultural and religious differences among the empire's diverse populations occasionally led to tensions that weakened internal cohesion. 6. Legacy of the Achaemenid decline. Despite its eventual fall, the Achaemenid Empire left an enduring legacy that influenced subsequent civilizations. Alexander's adoption of Persian practices. Alexander the Great admired Persian governance and incorporated many Achaemenid practices into his administration, including the satrapy system and the use of Persian officials. His fusion of Greek and Persian cultures, known as Hellenism, was deeply influenced by the Achaemenid model of multicultural governance, a model for future empires. The Achaemenid Empire's approach to administration, infrastructure, and cultural integration served as a blueprint for later empires, including the Roman and Byzantine empires. Persian art, architecture, and religious ideas continued to shape the cultural identity of the region for centuries. Symbol of unity and diversity. The Achaemenid Empire demonstrated the potential for unity among diverse peoples under a single political system, a lesson that resonates in modern concepts of governance and diplomacy. Conclusion. The decline of the Achaemenid Empire was a result of a combination of internal weaknesses and external pressures. The conquest of the Achaemenid Empire by Alexander the Great, 336 to 323 BC, marked the end of an era and the beginning of a new chapter in the history of the ancient world. Alexander's campaign against Persia, initiated in 334 BC, was driven by a desire to avenge the Greek city-states for Persian invasions and to establish himself as the ruler of the known world. His conquest culminated in the destruction of Persepolis, the ceremonial capital of the Achaemenid Empire, a symbolic and devastating blow to Persian power and culture. This key point explores Alexander's campaign, the fall of Persepolis, and its significance in the context of Persian and global history. 1. Alexander's campaign against Persia. Alexander's invasion of the Achaemenid Empire began shortly after he succeeded his father, Philip II of Macedon, in 336 BC. With a well-trained and disciplined army, Alexander launched one of the most ambitious military campaigns in history. The invasion begins. In 334 BC, Alexander crossed the Hellespont into Asia Minor with approximately 40,000 soldiers. His army was smaller than the Persian forces, but highly organized and motivated. His first major battle was the Battle of Granicus, where Alexander defeated a Persian army commanded by satraps of Asia Minor. This victory opened the way for his advance into the heart of the Persian Empire. The Battle of Issus, 333 BC. At Issus, Alexander faced Darius III, the Persian king, in a pivotal engagement. Despite being heavily outnumbered, Alexander's tactical brilliance and the discipline of his troops resulted in a decisive victory. Darius fled the battlefield, abandoning his family, who were captured by Alexander. This not only demoralized the Persian forces, but also allowed Alexander to portray himself as a magnanimous ruler by treating Darius's family with respect. Conquest of Egypt, 332 BC. After Issus, Alexander marched south and captured Egypt without significant resistance. The Egyptians, discontented with Persian rule, welcomed him as a liberator. In Egypt, Alexander founded the city of Alexandria, which would become a major center of learning and culture. He was also declared the son of the god Ammonius by priests at the Oracle of Siwa, further legitimizing his rule. 2. The march to Persepolis. Alexander's ultimate goal was to capture Persepolis, the ceremonial capital of the Achaemenid Empire. Along the way, he secured key cities and defeated remaining Persian forces. The Battle of Gaugamela, 331 BC. The decisive Battle of Gaugamela, fought near modern-day Iraq, marked the final major confrontation between Alexander and Darius III. Despite being vastly outnumbered, Alexander's innovative tactics and superior leadership secured a crushing victory. After Gaugamela, Darius once again fled, leaving the Persian heartland vulnerable to Alexander's forces. The capture of Babylon, Susa, and Persepolis. Alexander entered Babylon and Susa without significant resistance, as the Persian satraps surrendered these cities to avoid destruction. These conquests provided Alexander with immense wealth, as both cities were major economic and cultural centers of the empire. In early 330 BC, Alexander marched on Persepolis, encountering little resistance. The ceremonial capital, with its magnificent palaces and treasures, was a symbol of Persian power and culture. 3. The fall and destruction of Persepolis. The capture of Persepolis marked the symbolic end of the Achaemenid Empire. While Alexander initially sought to preserve the city, a series of events led to its destruction. The conquest of Persepolis. Upon entering Persepolis, Alexander and his army seized its immense wealth, which had been accumulated over centuries. The treasure looted from the city was so vast that it required thousands of camels and mules to transport. Persepolis was admired for its architectural grandeur, including the Apollon Hall, Gate of All Nations, and intricate reliefs depicting the empire's diversity. The burning of Persepolis. According to ancient sources, Persepolis was set ablaze during a drunken celebration held by Alexander and his companions. The reasons for the fire are debated. Some suggest it was an act of vengeance for the Persian sack of Athens during Xerxes' invasion of Greece in 480 BC. Others argue it was an impulsive act, possibly incited by a courtesan named Thais, who allegedly urged Alexander to burn the city as revenge. Whatever the motivation, the destruction of Persepolis symbolized the end of Persian dominance and the rise of Alexander's Hellenistic Empire. Impact of the destruction. The burning of Persepolis was a catastrophic loss for Persian culture, as countless artifacts, records, and architectural marvels were destroyed. Despite its destruction, the ruins of Persepolis remain a powerful symbol of the Achaemenid Empire's former glory and influence. 4. The death of Darius III. While Alexander occupied Persepolis, Darius III fled eastward in an attempt to regroup and rally support among the satraps of Bactria and Sogdiana. Darius's betrayal and assassination. Darius's efforts to rebuild his forces were undermined by disloyalty among his satraps. In 330 BC, Bessus, the satrap of Bactria, betrayed and murdered Darius, declaring himself the new king of Persia. When Alexander reached Darius's body, he mourned the fallen king and ordered him buried with full honors, portraying himself as the rightful successor to the Achaemenid throne. Alexander's consolidation of power. With Darius dead, Alexander declared the Achaemenid dynasty ended and began integrating Persian traditions and officials into his administration. He adopted elements of Persian royal attire and customs, symbolizing the fusion of Greek and Persian cultures. 5. The legacy of Persepolis and Alexander's conquest. The fall of Persepolis and the broader conquest of the Achaemenid Empire had profound and lasting effects on the ancient world. Cultural fusion. Alexander's adoption of Persian customs and his encouragement of intermarriage between Greeks and Persians fostered a blending of cultures that defined the Hellenistic period. Cities founded by Alexander, such as Alexandria in Egypt and others across Central Asia, became centers of cultural exchange and innovation. Symbolic significance of Persepolis. The destruction of Persepolis symbolized the transition from the Achaemenid Empire to Alexander's Hellenistic Empire. However, the ruins of the city continue to stand as a testament to the architectural and cultural achievements of the Persian Empire. Persepolis remains a UNESCO World Heritage Site and a source of pride for modern Iranians, reflecting the enduring legacy of the Achaemenids. Alexander's vision. By conquering and absorbing the Persian Empire, Alexander achieved his goal of creating a unified world empire. His vision of blending Greek and Persian cultures set the stage for centuries of cultural exchange and interaction. Conclusion. The fall of Persepolis and the broader conquest of the Achaemenid Empire by Alexander the Great marked the end of one of history's most influential empires. Though the Achaemenid Empire fell to Alexander the Great in 330 BC, its legacy has endured for millennia, shaping the cultural, political, and administrative frameworks of subsequent empires and civilizations. The empire's innovative governance, infrastructure, religious tolerance, and cultural achievements not only defined the ancient world but also left an indelible mark on global history. This final key point explores the Achaemenid Empire's enduring influence and how its legacy continues to resonate in the modern era. 1. Governance and administrative innovations. The Achaemenid Empire's model of governance, first established by Cyrus the Great and refined by Darius I, became a blueprint for empires that followed. The satrapy system. The division of the empire into satrapies, provinces, governed by satraps who reported to the central authority, was revolutionary in its time. This decentralized system allowed for efficient administration of a vast and diverse empire, balancing local autonomy with centralized oversight. Later empires, including the Seleucid, Parthian, Sasanian, and even the Roman and Byzantine empires, adopted similar provincial systems. Standardized taxation and coinage. The Achaemenid Empire introduced a standardized system of taxation tailored to the economic capacity of each region, ensuring a steady revenue stream for the central government. The introduction of the daric and siglos, standardized gold and silver coins, facilitated trade and economic integration across the empire, influencing monetary systems in the ancient and medieval worlds. Infrastructure and communication. The Royal Road, an extensive network of roads and relay stations, revolutionized communication and trade in the ancient world. The concept of creating interconnected trade routes inspired later systems like the Roman road network and even the Silk Road, which linked Asia and Europe. 2. Cultural and artistic contributions. The Achaemenid Empire was a cultural melting pot, and its artistic and architectural achievements reflected the diversity of its population. Persepolis and Achaemenid architecture. The construction of Persepolis, with its grand palaces, monumental staircases, and intricate reliefs, showcased the empire's architectural brilliance and cultural inclusivity. Elements of Achaemenid architecture, such as columned halls and decorative motifs, influenced later civilizations, including the Parthians and Sasanians, and can even be seen in Islamic and Western architecture. Art and multiculturalism. Persian art emphasized unity and diversity, depicting subjects from various regions of the empire bringing tribute to the king. The empire's commitment to blending cultural elements set a precedent for later empires that sought to integrate diverse populations under a single rule. Preservation of local cultures. The Achaemenid policy of respecting local traditions, religions, and customs allowed regional cultures to thrive while contributing to the broader Persian identity. This practice influenced the governance of multicultural empires in later history. 3. Religious tolerance and ethical governance. The Achaemenid Empire's approach to religion and ethics was one of its most influential legacies. Zoroastrianism. The Achaemenid kings, particularly Darius I and Xerxes I, were devout followers of Zoroastrianism, which emphasized the duality of good and evil and the importance of righteous action. The empire's principles of justice and moral governance, inspired by Zoroastrian teachings, influenced the political philosophies of later empires and religions. Religious freedom. The Achaemenids' policy of religious tolerance, exemplified by Cyrus the Great's decree allowing the Jews to return to Jerusalem and rebuild their temple, set a standard for pluralistic governance. This tolerance influenced the practices of subsequent empires, including the Romans, and resonated in the development of ideas about religious freedom in modern societies. Human rights. The Cyrus Cylinder, often regarded as the world's first charter of human rights, highlighted Cyrus's commitment to equality and justice. Its principles of respecting cultural diversity and abolishing forced labor inspired later declarations of human rights, including those of the modern era. 4. Influence on later empires. The Achaemenid Empire's administrative and cultural achievement served as a foundation for many subsequent empires in the region and beyond. Hellenistic fusion. After the conquest of Persia, Alexander the Great adopted many Achaemenid practices, including the satrapy system and elements of Persian court etiquette. The blending of Greek and Persian cultures during the Hellenistic period, known as Hellenism, shaped the political and cultural landscape of the ancient world. Parthian and Sasanian empires. The Parthian, 247 BC, 224 AD, and Sasanian, 224 to 651 AD empires, which succeeded the Achaemenids in Persia, inherited many of their administrative, cultural, and religious traditions. The Sasanians, in particular, viewed themselves as the rightful heirs of the Achaemenid legacy, and their empire became a beacon of Persian culture and Zoroastrianism. Global influence. The Achaemenid model of governance and cultural integration influenced empires far beyond Persia, including the Roman, Byzantine, and Ottoman empires. Its legacy can also be traced in modern nation-states that value diversity and inclusivity. 5. The enduring symbol of Persepolis. The ruins of Persepolis, the ceremonial capital of the Achaemenid Empire, remain a powerful symbol of Persian heritage. Cultural pride. Persepolis stands as a testament to the grandeur of the Achaemenid Empire and its contributions to art, architecture, and governance. For modern Iranians, it represents a connection to their ancient heritage and a source of national pride. UNESCO World Heritage Site. Persepolis was designated a UNESCO World Heritage Site in 1979, ensuring its preservation as a symbol of human achievement and cultural diversity. Inspiration for future generations. The architectural and cultural achievements of Persepolis continue to inspire scholars, artists, and historians, keeping the legacy of the Achaemenid Empire alive. 6. Lessons for modern governance. The Achaemenid Empire's emphasis on inclusivity, tolerance, and effective administration offers valuable lessons for modern governments. Multicultural integration. The Achaemenid approach to governing a diverse population serves as a model for modern states seeking to balance unity with cultural pluralism. Infrastructure development. The empire's investments in roads, communication, and economic integration underscore the importance of infrastructure in fostering unity and prosperity. Ethical leadership. The emphasis on justice, fairness, and respect for human dignity in Achaemenid governance remains relevant in today's discussions of ethical leadership and human rights.